If you're new to Search Arbitrage, then you might think about what can go wrong. So there are a lot of opportunities, but there are also a lot of wrong steps you can jump into. In this video, I will share with you the 5 biggest mistakes I see out there for people which are not just starting, but already in business with Search Arbitrage. Hi everyone, my name is Marcel Sattler. I'm the founder of nativeadvertising.net, your platform and your resource platform about native ads. You can find on our website a lot of free resources about native. On this YouTube channel, I'm still keep going to create and publish new videos about native ads, arbitrage, and way more content totally for free. But now let's jump into the topic. So the first mistake I see that people are choosing way too broad keywords, like for example, weight loss. Instead, what's way better is to use something like weight loss for women over 40, because this is way more intent driven, and the chances that people are also clicking on the next page is way higher, because at the end of the day, you don't just want to click or to bring people to click on your ad, but you actually want that people clicking on your ad and then they click on the feed provider side on the next page, because this is the part where it starts to make money for you. And again, if you're too broad here, people will not be affected by it and they will not really care about it, because they can read everywhere to lose weight, to look better, get wrinkle free, whatever. But as soon as you specify the audience here, then it starts to get some drive and momentum. So here, my rule of thumb is never go too broad. Usually there are two things, when it comes to native advertising targeting, you need to go broad, because this is the only way it makes sense to really scale it up. But what's important here, when it comes to the keywords, don't go too broad. Go very specific. Go very specific, use long tail keywords here, and try to really also address the audience already in the keyword and in the ad. Second mistake which I see is wrong tracking, or don't really care about the tracking, because for example RPM looks good and then they don't really jump into it. So what I've seen recently from an actual client is, when I analyzed his campaigns, that he had a few keywords where he spent more than $3,500 on without any single conversion. And this is just because in the campaign itself the RPM was fine, but a few keywords there never received any conversion. And again, it was 3,700 something US dollar. It's a lot of money, which was basically just wasted. And he had all the tracking tools. And this is very important for you. Use a tracking tool, something like Clicklflare or whatever, when it comes to native advertising and search arbitrage. Because without a proper tracking tool, you are lost. You don't know in which direction you should move on, and you're flying like blind without any windows, without any navigation. So even though it costs a bit of money per month, you need a tracker. Something like Clicklflare, for example, is the best solution when it comes to search arbitrage, in my opinion. The third biggest mistake I see out there is run traffic without a block list or without a whitelist. That means when you start to run traffic, for example, on a platform like Taboola, you advertise every page. And there are some premium publishers, but there are also just some push publishers. Those publishers are basically in-app games where you just need to press in order to continue your free game. But those people, they have zero intentions to actually click on your page or on your ad. So just click on it in order to continuing their game. But these clicks, they are there, but they're not worth it. And therefore, it's always important to use a block list to avoid this push traffic, or to use a whitelist in order to say exactly which pages you want to include. But keep in mind here, whitelist is nothing you can specify automatically to say like, but I just want to run on these 2 pages. That's not the case. A whitelist is usually a bunch of pages, a bunch of publishers, which are selected by the traffic platform, like for example Taboola or Outbrain. So always go with a whitelist or a block list. Never go here totally free without anything like this into a self-service account. With a self-service account without any block list or whitelist, you will burn a lot of unnecessary money. You will waste a lot of money at the end of the day. And my last point is linked to the next point, to our fourth point. And this is account suspensions. So sometimes I see when people start native, they just buy garbage traffic. And this traffic sometimes is not compliant because it's also a lot of bot traffic and these kind of things. And then what happens? The platform is suspending the campaigns and sooner or later also your account. And this is a very bad thing because to get an account is actually pretty hard to get a feed account, you know? And when the account is suspended or the campaigns are suspended, that means you're unable to make any money. And it's like a negative circle down, you know? You want to go cheap, you start with a broad campaign, with a self-service account, then you get bad traffic, you get bot traffic, the feed provider detects it, the feed provider will suspend your campaigns, and then the provider will most probably sooner or later also suspend your account. And again, this is something you definitely want to avoid. And I've seen this so many times that the accounts are getting suspended just because of cheap garbage traffic here. So there's always a risk when you run native and arbitrage, especially if you don't know how to run native ads properly. And last but not least, it's my fifth mistake: scale way too fast, way too aggressive, and without any idea. So some marketers, they see, okay, I run now 2 days with profit, and now I want to scale it up. I can go rich with it. And that's a huge mistake because then they just add a zero and they think it will scale up like this, but that's not the case. There's always a structure and a framework in the background in order to scale up. So it's never just like adding more budget. That's not the case. There's always, again, a very definite framework, which we have, for example, in our agency when we scale up and search arbitrage account. There's a very clear framework with very clear ETAs, with very clear timeframes in the background in order to scale it up. So one mistake here, for example, I see very often is that a few marketers, when they begin, they see a few keywords which are performing well, and then they isolate these keywords and just scale them up. And then they're wondering after a couple of days, okay, but why the RPM drops so massively? Or why my return net spend is dropping from 3 to 0.7, you know? And this is exactly because you just have a handful of keywords and you try to scale them as aggressive as possible. And this sooner or later will break everything down, because then your positive campaign will turn into negativity, into loss, and you don't have any backup here. You don't produce new material, new keywords, you don't test around here. So it's always a combination between testing and scaling. But again, there are multiple steps. It depends on which stage you are right now in order to understand also which part of the framework is necessary for you right now. But again, long story short, there's never just scaling. It's always a combination between scaling and testing. By the way, if you want to read more and see more about search arbitrage, write down in the comments search arbitrage, and let's see if there are enough of comments. Then I will create more content about search arb. Have a good one. See you next time.